to the West Coast Swing Wellness podcast, where today I'm talking to Sam Silvester, who's a trained nutritionist and a sound healing expert as well. I just want to give you a heads up in this episode. Not only are we talking about what is sound healing and how that can benefit us as dancers as well as humans, we do also stray into topics where we discuss what is trauma, how we can define that and how we can heal it. And whilst we don't talk specifically about any particular trauma, we do have a fairly long discussion about it. So if you're in a place where you're maybe a little fragile today, or that's not something you want to hear, please leave this until you are feeling a little stronger. It's only a very mild discussion, but it is a fair portion of what we talk about, as sound healing can be really helpful for releasing these things. So I hope you enjoy the episode, and I'll leave you with her now. Hi, welcome back to another episode of the West Coast Swing Wellness podcast, where we help humans live well and dance well. And joining me is Sam Silvester, who is many things, but most recently, let me get this right, like sound healing practitioner.
Yes, sound therapist, sound healer, all of those I'll answer to.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. And we'll go a little bit in a minute on what that is exactly. But first of all, do you want to maybe introduce yourself a bit more, and then we'll go into how we met and why we're here.
Okay, so I have been a nutritionist practicing for over 14 years, seeing people mostly one-to-one for all sorts of things. It might be digestive, it might be weight loss, might be skin, hormones, and been loving doing that. But I've also been on my own healing journey. I've got rheumatoid arthritis, and so I nailed the diet, obviously, nailed the lifestyle things. But I kind of knew that there was a missing piece of the puzzle. And this goes back to emotions that we hold in the body from trauma and things like that. So I was starting to see with my clients and with myself that there's another bit of work to be done. So that's what's taken me into this new part of sound healing. And I went to a sound bath, absolutely loved it, and realized that the combination of meditation and frequencies, which we'll talk about, can just add this another level of healing. And then dance wise, so I have been dancing for about 8 years and doing West Coast for about 6 of those.
Is that
And
including the pandemic years? Because I feel they don't count. They
yeah,
don't count at all.
yeah, I had a designated person that I danced with every week, and whilst everyone else was getting rusty, I was actually getting better.
Oh my
So I
gosh,
was
that's
so grateful to
wonderful.
that person, yeah, for doing that. So that was marvelous. And yeah, dancing has just always been my passion. It comes before my friends, it comes before my children. And yeah, it's just I'm just really grateful for what it gives me in terms of movement, but also, you know, I often stand at an event and go, aren't I lucky? These are not just acquaintances, these are a huge amount of people I call my friends. So I just love it for that.
I love that, because like for me, the community is such a big thing. And one of my commitments, I don't think I've shared on here before, is, you know, I've been in and out of dance most of my life. For a big portion of my 20s, all of them, my dedication was martial arts. And I promised myself when I came into dancing that the one thing I wanted to be was social. So I didn't just want to only dance. I wanted to connect on a deeper level. And I think that's benefited my dance and me so much. And I have some really good friends who've come out of it. You know who you are.
Yes, us. That's how, yeah. And I'm just so happy to meet people like you, and I'm so glad we have connected because we're both sort of on the same page, and that's just really nice. But I have to say, I'm not, like I've just said about how there's this wonderful community. I'm not very good at talking. I get on the dance floor and I see that person, I see that person, and I think it's only now that I will take a bit more time to have a conversation, whereas for many years I didn't speak to anyone really. And you do, I think you miss out when that happens.
Yeah. And I have to say, like, I intentionally did it like I did it with Jive first, not West Coast, naughty word, but I basically had an event that was really close to my house. I was like, right, I'm gonna offer people food, gotta like me if I give you food.
Yeah.
And it just led to conversation and, you know, people getting ready together. And I think, oh, like somebody was like, oh, you can borrow this top, don't worry. And oh, I can fix that for you. Or, oh, yeah, sure, you can crash. And then that sort of spiraled into us sort of touring the UK and people from all over kind of coming together. And now it's like this little family. And if somebody's near Oxford and there's an event, they come stay with me and we chat and we see each other socially as well. But that was definitely a very intentional thing to do. I think it is hard if you are first entering dance, you're like nervous enough about asking someone to dance, and then you have the whole social element as well. But it's definitely rewarding when you do it. And I think you and I probably got to know each other a bit better for a few dive places, and then a couple of places when lockdown was just lifting and we had some friends doing events and we got to really chat and have some deep conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Huh.
And you helped me a bit with marketing over lockdown.
For my limited knowledge, yeah. Definitely. That's what we're here for, share and share alike, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm loving this, but we're here to talk healing. It's one of the things that you and I have connected on, I think, because I've been on my own journey. I've been curious about a lot of things. I think we had a really good conversation when a partner of mine came to see your daughter for a massage and we sat chatting for ages.
Yeah, did. Yeah. And I wasn't even in the sort of space that I am now then. So yeah,
Mm,
it's even more relevant.
yeah. So I've been curious about sound healing for as long as I have known about it, which is only really a couple of years. I did try an online one. It didn't work for me, I have to say. And got very distracted. And I'm not a great meditator. Like movement meditation, yes. Sitting meditation, oh my goodness, monkey mind goes all over the place. But I've heard amazing things. So, how about you walk us through what it is? Because I might have misperceptions.
Okay. So sound healing is very vogue at the moment. There's popping up all over the place, but it's been something that's been around for thousands of years. And many different cultures have used ancient instruments and vocals to help their immediate community or their tribe overcome some mental anguish or even some physical anguish. So it's something that's got very deep roots in healing. And if you, well, we are 75% water, and water is a great conductor of energy. And when you play these different instruments, they produce not only different tones and sounds, but frequencies. And those frequencies create an energy that can go deep into our cells, through our fascia, through our bones, and it can really help move energetic blockages, mental blockages, and even physical blockages,
Mm.
as well as the very act of, I mean, like you say, meditation alone is quite hard for some people. But when you're not having to just focus on keeping the thoughts out or focus on your breathing, you're actually having this sound come in through the ear. It's stimulating the vagus nerve. And that is a different way of taking you. Someone described it the other day as a journey. Because when you use, like I'll use a bit of drumming, and so there's that rhythmic sound that will do one thing to the vagus nerve and kind of calm it. And then you hit the gong and the nervous system is alarmed for a moment. And I don't do it as hard as some people because I think it can be too hard on the
It's a bit
nervous.
of a shock.
But then you're on alert, and that is followed by a period of, oh, okay. So the body's going up and down through, as well as hearing what I hope is beautiful noise. And then there's chimes, which sort of just take you. A lot of people say when I use the chimes, it sort of almost takes them back into a childhood place, a very gentle. They're feeling in this cocoon. Um, but I think just the act also of coming to a place, laying down, tucking yourself up in a blanket, and everyone else's energy, because we really produce energy, good or bad. You've only got to walk into a room and you can sense sometimes if there's been an argument, or you can sense often with dancing the love in the room.
Or the
And
connection. Like, and I have to say, like, as somebody who has been very science based, and still is for most of their life, I had a lot of resistance to this. And then I saw like scans of monks' brains when they were meditating. And I had somebody point it out to me and they're like, well, do you believe in an MRI? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, what you're doing in MRI, it's a big magnet spinning
Yeah,
around you and it's making the water molecules in your body point in a certain direction and twist at a certain frequency. And then we're reading that frequency to see how much water is in that particular part of you or not. And I was like, well, damn.
yeah,
I guess we have energy then.
yeah. And I've just seen so many of my own journey of different ways how energy, I have acupuncture, and I used to always be, yeah, I think it's a thing, but it wasn't until, there was one particular session where she put some needles in my foot, and this whoosh of energy came up so much that I felt lightheaded and sick. Now, I'm the most cynical person going, and I thought, well, okay, that's just from an energy within the body. And so we can do this with acupressure, we can do it with meditation, we can do it with sound. And this is just such a new level that can do it. So I'm not sure if that's kind of answered your question about what a sound, I mean, that's kind of how it works.
Mm.
What a sound bath actually is where you go and lay down. You can sit up if you've got back problems, but you'll lay down tucked up in a blanket. I'll start with a meditation just to get you out of that place where you just come into the room and start to
You've got the list and you've got the shopping
tell
list
you,
you need to do. And
yeah,
you've got
just
the da,
tell
da,
your
da,
body,
da, da.
okay, let's just
Yeah.
prepare for something different. And then the instruments come in, and like I say, that takes you this place, that place, up and down, but overall deep within the subconscious, and all the different waves. And what you also find is there's something called entrainment. So the brain will start to try and match these frequencies. And when it does, that's when you kind of lose sense of time, of where you are. You're almost in a different, who knows, maybe a parallel universe. We don't know.
State of mind at the
The
very
quantum
least.
physics people out there will tell us more. But yeah, so that entrainment allows you to go deep into that subconscious. And that's really where our magic happens, because we use, I don't know, I can't remember the exact statistics, but it's something like 10 to 20% of our conscious. The
Mm-hmm.
rest of us are all subconscious. And there's a lot happening there that can really change,
Mm-hmm.
feel our beliefs and our health.
Yeah, like that has never been so true as when I have gone through my own coaching and therapy sessions and they've pointed out something as like, oh, are you aware you have this belief? And I'm like, oh no, I didn't. But when it's pointed out, you see it, and there's stories that we hold, right? And those are the conscious ones. So, or the ones that we can bring to conscious, and they're able to come into words.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
What I'm taking from that is, if I'm really cynical, the least that happens is I lie down in a room, have a nice floaty time with some sound around me under a warm blanket, and that's nice and a chill space for me to just calm my mind.
Who doesn't need
And
that?
yeah, that sounds great. And then the best thing that can happen is sort of a healing on a very subconscious level through the sound. And I'm guessing, I think one of the things I get fascinated with therapy is the theory that we sometimes re-traumatize ourselves by going back over a trauma, by having to verbalize it and talk through it. And that's why I find other therapies quite fascinating, because it sounds like stuff can go on and you can heal without really being aware of it.
Yeah, and lots of different things can happen to people at a sound healing session, because I do one-to-ones as well, and that's much more personal. So the bowls are all immediately around them. They can even be placed on you. And there's a lot of intention setting, both for a group and for a one-to-one. And I'll talk about two people about what their intentions are, what any blockages they have. They don't have to go into detail, or they can, and then I can really focus on that. So it can bring up, emotions for people that can come to the surface that they had really deep rooted.
Mm.
um, and some people may just start to think, okay, it's I need more time for myself. So there can be all sorts of crying. There can feel great euphoria. People can feel physical sensations. They can feel tingling. I had one lady who said that she could feel a whole energy going through her and out to her again.
Wow.
Um, and another person, they slept for 9 hours, which they hadn't done for years afterwards. So the power of our subconscious and how we're not allowing that to be is so strong in this Western world. And as I said to you before, when we were chatting before, I'm really on a mission to just get people to just stop, unplug for a bit, and just listen to the messages from their mind and body that they're just pushing down with stimulants or with activities or with social media.
As I say,
And
I
when you
only
actually,
scroll Facebook. That's when I know something's going on. It's like,
yeah,
why I don't even want to watch these videos. I don't know
yeah,
why I'm here. That's a signal to me. Yeah.
and it's really hard to just sit and listen, but the benefits of doing so is massive.
Yeah. Wow. I can't remember the exact wording because you said it before we were recording, but I think it's something along you're on a mission to help people realize there's another way of being and how wonderful that feels. I think was the sort of the sentiment.
And I've just found this, in doing something that I thought would be a nice relaxation, a nice meditation, another place to just help people de-stress has taken me on a whole new journey where
Mm.
I'm meeting healers from all sorts of walks of life, the most fascinating people, no arrogance, and they're just people with just great intentions. And benefits that I'm finding for myself in just starting to be aware of my body, of what needs to happen. There's still a big healing journey, both emotionally from traumas in the past and physically. And I'm still, I kind of feel like there's this whole new world open to me and I'm at the very beginning of it.
That's so
And there's loads
exciting
to grow. So
sometimes.
exciting. Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, there's this whole world and I didn't know I could access it. I think some people find it frustrating because they're like, oh, why didn't I know about this sooner? Whereas I'm like, oh, there is so much to learn and explore and experience. And I think that's also what drew me to West Coast was I don't think I'm ever going to be done with this journey. And that excites me
I
so
know,
much.
I know. It's just, there's another layer and another layer. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Fab. So, I mean, thank you for sharing because some of that was quite deep. I really appreciate it. And we've spoken a bit about trauma. I think that sometimes can be quite scary, or people can associate it with something really big, like, oh, people who have been, possibly had an assault or a lot of grief or a lot of violence in their life. My recent understanding of trauma is that it can be anything that has affected us deeply and emotionally, and that doesn't have to be anything particularly bad or large on the scale of life. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, Gabor Mate, who's done some brilliant books on trauma, and there's a fantastic book, When the Body Says No, which looks
Mm.
at how trauma affects us physically, how stored trauma will come out as physical ailments. Um, I've lost my train of thought. What did you say? Sorry, Natalie, about, oh, yes,
That trauma can be things that we would consider small. So maybe even as simple as somebody once told you you'd be better at maths and art. I once interviewed a lady and her parents gave her and her twin sister compliments. Her twin sister was told she was pretty and she was told she was clever, but that led them to believing they weren't the other thing until they were about 40.
yeah. And that's what I was coming to actually. Gabor Mate says that one of the definitions of trauma is you can have a stress response and then it's healed, it's dealt with and closed.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma happens when there's a stress response and there's no closure. So
Right.
you're not either validated or you're healed or you get to understood. You're just left with something that happens. And also the different trauma responses, anger can be one.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely been there.
freeze, yeah,
Why are you
freeze,
angry that you burnt the duck pancakes? I just am, and it's
yeah,
not about the pancakes.
yes, yeah. And it can be freeze where,
Mm.
you're so frightened in that situation, you just shut down. And that freeze response can go on for years and can draw a huge amount of energy to be able to stay in that. And then there's a new one. So we've got the kind of fight and flight anger, we've got the freeze, but the new one is fawn, where you have to play along and people please in order, because it's not safe to express anything at that time of trauma. And at that,
Oh.
an expression of trauma is another thing that can sit deep within the tissues for years and years and years. And this is where different therapies, obviously talking therapy, sound therapy, Reiki, meditation, can all get deep within these, you know, boxes that are closed. I had someone the other day saying, I'm great, I can box everything off. And I said, what kind of physical response is that having as boxing off?
Mm.
And it brings out huge amounts. If it can't be expressed, it will go deep physically.
Wow. I think that. I mean, there's a lot of things. I'm going to go read When the Body Says No. I've read When the Body Keeps a Score, but not When the Body Says No. So that has just opened a whole line of thought for me personally
Yeah,
of
yeah,
maybe one of my
really.
responses that I'll possibly have a think on before I share. But you just said, yeah, I think the thing you just said about but what does that do to you physically? And if you don't speak it, it becomes physical. Like, can you just repeat that? Because I think that's worth repeating.
Yeah, if you just keep suppressing emotion, it will be stored in the body, and that storing will create a physical response. It has to in some way, because we are energetic, vibrating cells. We've got a lot of electrical impulses in our brain and our heart, and if those are impacted by emotions, you can feel when you're excited about how that affects you physically. You
Yeah.
can feel when you're scared how that affects you physically. So if that is something that's just lodged deep within the body, that can really affect you. And in Gabor Mate's book about The Body Says No, he talks a lot about autoimmune diseases, of which I've got, and about cancer also, which I've had, and how those are this, for many people, this inexpression of what was unable to be expressed.
Mm, yeah. And I guess even on a lesser level than that, because of course cancer can occur unfortunately in anyone, and other things can occur, and we're still understanding those scientifically. But I mean, we had a beautiful interview with Jakob and Emmeline over COVID, and they described a moment a few opens ago, US Open, where they had done first round, they got through to final, and Jakob had a really bad back and he needed it fixed. And I said to Emily, how do you feel about that? She was like, oh, finally. He's sorting it out, and he managed to release things. And they both indicated that they felt it was maybe emotional things he was holding on to that had caused him to have a very sore back. And whilst he was being fixed, there was quite an emotional response. And then they went on to dance, and they danced better than they danced in a long time. So I just think, wow, every time I try and have resistance to these ideas, there's links, there's placebo effect that I can't ignore. It's in every study I have to read every day. And it's just so powerful and so obvious, but we ignore it so often.
Yeah, and it's so true about dance and emotions and trauma, because if you're when I first started dancing, I had a big invisible perspex barrier all around me, keep people out, keep them at a distance. And I think when you start to listen to yourself, when you start to know how to relax, and when you have self-care and kindness for yourself, then you can emanate, you stop hiding, you stop protecting, and you can give kindness out. And that can be so powerful in dance.
Mm.
I always remember doing the emotions class with, there's an American dancer beginning with K. Um, people listening will know who I mean, but he does this, and I'll put it in the notes if anyone would like. He did an emotions class at one of the European events, and it was all about,
Oh, was it
he
Chuck
put on
Brown?
different types. Chuck Brown, sorry, it didn't begin with K at all. Just put on different types of music, and we just had to dance in the room by ourselves, not with someone, feeling that, and it was so powerful. And then that evening, all people who'd attended it were dancing in a completely different way.
Mm-hmm.
I just now, instead of, yeah, go on, sorry.
No, I was going to say I've seen Bradley and Inga do a similar thing. His tree class, but it's very similar the
Yes,
concept. And I've
yeah.
seen Chuck's class as well. And like, it's something we brought into Jitsu. Like, if you had stuff going on, you had to deal with the emotion first, or you were just fighting yourself before you fought anyone else. Um,
But not even dealing with it if it's not too difficult to bring that in, to
hmm
feel that moment of love in a dance, or to feel that um you know some other kind of deep emotion. We went through this whole spectrum, and you just feel. And I think a lot of people are dancing and not feeling, and it's so lovely when people are
Yeah,
feeling movement and you can feel that connection. It's
yeah. I mean, after all, we're like, what is it? I was reading Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown, which is all about emotions and how we interpret them. And oh my goodness, it's brilliant. Anybody who has not read it, please read it. Go get the book. It's really pretty. But I think now I'm going to get the numbers wrong, so I'll again put this in the notes. But she said something like we can name maybe 5 emotions on average, and there's at least I think 90 that are recognized and 27 primary emotions. We can name 5, and she made the point that if we can't name them or distinguish them, we can't fully feel or express them, and then that's when our frustration and challenges build up. And I did an interview with somebody dancing with emotions on how music can let them out, why we play music in the first place. I love that existential connection between the fact that whoever thought of the music and then played it, and then the DJ who's chosen it, and then every person who's ever expressed their story to that song are all connected in the moment that you're now letting your thing into it with your partner and with whoever else is watching and whoever else is on the floor. I absolutely love it. And yet so often we're dancing with our hearts closed and our bodies
yeah,
sore and not operating optimally because of it.
yeah. I'd much rather have a bad dancer who's feeling the music than
Yeah,
a really good dancer who's just
like
in a
going
row.
through the motions.
Yeah,
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 it's terrible, isn't it? You're like, yeah, cool, that's fine. You didn't have to dance with me. You could have said no.
but the other thing I've started doing, which is really nice, is sometimes I would come to an event and I'd, you know, put on my big girl pants and walk through the door and, I'm here, I'm doing this. Okay, there's an initial, for some people, sometimes for me, you've got to gear yourself up to kind of walk through the door and
Yeah,
there's all these people. And now, as I arrive to a place, as I walk up to the door, I just imagine a room full of kindness and I'm sending out kindness to everyone. And that just really helps me. And I hope that somehow they're feeling that as well. And it just puts you in a better place rather than, oh, is that person thinking this of me? Is that, sending out kindness, you can't go wrong, can you?
no, I love that. I imagine I'm a Labrador puppy.
Do you?
Yeah, literally, like people don't realize it, but I have like had a lot of social anxiety. Like I really was quite bullied as a kid, and didn't feel I fit in anywhere. And that still can come up for me, and I have to challenge it. So like my alter ego is not the Labrador puppy. Like everybody wants to say hello, everybody loves me. They just haven't met me yet, and like I have to go in with that belief and that, hi everybody, how are you? Oh, this is great. This is fun. This is exciting. That like higher energy. Um,
And that's so how you come across when people do meet you, is this
Ah,
this this lovable person. Yeah,
yeah.
really nice.
Well, now you can see my inner Labrador coming
I
out.
can, totally.
But yeah, I love that projecting kindness into the room. I think that's wonderful too. Um, and I think it's a brilliant space to let things go. Like, I've definitely had dances where I don't even know what we were dancing about, but something shifted.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's about flow states, isn't it? When you're in a flow state, such as dancing, you cannot really, it's not really a secret that I have lived with people with addictions, which caused a lot of my trauma. And thankfully, the people in my life are all better now, which is just wonderful. But I would arrive at events, many years ago, having just left this massive amount of trauma,
yeah,
thinking if only people knew what had just happened,
yeah.
then get on the dance floor. And within 2 dances, I can't think about that because I'm in this flow state, and it's just the best antidote to, trauma and difficulties. I think it really is.
Mm. So if we then combine that with having done some of the healing, with having done maybe a sound bath and some other things, and I found it interesting, just very looping back to something you said earlier about it passing through you, and you mentioned about the fascia, because I was talking with Mandy a little while back, and we've got an episode on that about fascia and why they're important physically and emotionally as well. So just the more I dive into this, the more it's all connected.
It's so interesting about the fashion thing. I'm sure Mandy might have covered that, but I've had this tight shoulder for years and years and years, and I've always tried to do exercises to stretch it, and but I've now realised it's about letting go.
Mm-hmm.
When I go into a meditative state, and I had a session in the summer where I was really poorly with neck and stuff, and that was how my meditation practice really took off, because I could only be comfortable laying down. And I thought I might as well meditate. And when I came out, where I'd let go of all the fascia was far more beneficial than me trying to stretch it and work that
Yeah.
fascia.
So you combine the two.
Yeah,
Incredible.
yeah.
So if somebody wants to experience a sound bath, they're curious, they're like, well, all of that sounds brilliant. I'm gonna let go of some stuff that I don't even need to verbalize. I'm gonna be able to connect to other people and myself more. I'm gonna be able to dance in more of a flow state, which is the thing we're all seeking, right? That connection, that moment of just how they start it, because I imagine there's like some gentle starts and some very deep dive starts.
Well, any sound bath, and they're popping up in everyone's area, will be much like I've described. And, it's not going to be a place where everyone's sobbing. It's just a place of gentle relaxation. And some places, there's the opportunity to discuss how you feel, and you don't have to say anything if you want. And some people, do have a nice open discussion on, okay, that I just heard this, I felt that. And so there's sound baths everywhere. There's sound baths online, and I'm going to be running them online from February. And I'm going to do a nice Sunday evening restorative thing, a few Sundays a month.
And for those,
Um,
how would you recommend getting the best out of them? Because I did try one and I struggled, and I don't know if it was the surroundings I was in. I don't know if I needed better sound systems. Like, how would you
I
get
think
the
it's
best
all
out
of
of it?
those.
Not
You
surrounded by, are you?
you need to be in a place where you're comfortable, warm, and quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good to not just go from I'm busy, I've been walking the dog, I've been talking to my friend, I've been doing housework, to then listening. I think there needs to be an interlude of where you just have a quiet moment. You
Mm-hmm.
start to think about, what do I want to get out of this? How am I actually feeling? So you give yourself that maybe 10,
Nice.
15
Yeah.
space first. And then I recommend using headphones to
Okay.
really,
Yeah, I just
really,
had my computer, so that probably didn't
I
help.
think that makes a huge difference, because you're really immersed in the sound and you can't
Mm-hmm.
pick up other things as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, online sound baths. If I've got one, if anyone's near to, I'm in Wantage in Oxfordshire, I've got a scent and sound on the
Ooh.
22nd, which is where I'm
I'm
collaborating
so
with
cross I can't make that one.
oh, we keep clashing with your fire walking
I
and
know, do
my
the
sound.
fire walk that night.
Yeah. So that's aromatherapy and sound. So there's going to be all sort. The room's going to be filled with essential oils, and my wonderful friend Kathy, she's going to be going around massaging hands or heads if they want it, whilst I'm
Oh,
giving this cacophony of sound all around. So there's that.
I
Um,
definitely need to get to the next one because that sounds incredible.
yeah. And then if anybody wants to come for a one-to-one, then that's a lovely, more intensive, personalized experience. And also, if anyone's got a kind of group of people, then I'll come to them and
Oh,
provide.
brilliant.
So, yeah,
Oh, fantastic. And maybe when we get our dates in the diary for the next retreat, maybe we could get you coming along.
yeah, love to. Yeah,
Witness, love it. Oh, thank you so much, Sam. We'll pop your website addresses in the show notes, but just for anybody who's only listening, where can they find you?
the best place at the moment is Facebook, and it's Restore You on Facebook.
Mhm.
I've got my nutrition website, which is what'seatingyou.co.uk. So you can always reach me through that, and there's contact details there. My actual Restore You Sound one is in the process of being built, and that's going to be a bit of a long process, I think, at the moment where I'm super busy. But yeah, through Facebook, Facebook friends, a lot of people on here are friends of me, so through that, or I have got a dedicated Restore You Facebook page as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And looking forward to seeing you on a dance floor sometime soon.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you.